On October the 31st, 1517, Martin Luther posted 95 big questions which he believed faced the church of his day to a local church door in Wittenberg, Germany. 500 years later, I decided to post 95 new questions, one a week, to the web, questions which I believe the church must face in the 21st century. Love God, Jesus said. Love God with all your heart and soul and mind. But the truth is that for many people it's very hard to love a God when they've been taught that although he is love, he also has a dark side. The God of the Bible, who calls himself love, is, we're told, on the other hand, quite capable of turning on some of the very people he created and then punishing them in hell with eternal torment for the things they didn't or couldn't believe during their few short years of life on earth. So this week's Chalke Talk is a little different. It has far more questions than usual. But they're questions that I think we need to be able to ask. In fact, of course, I think they are questions that countless numbers of people across the world beyond churches do ask, but those in churches are often afraid to voice. Perhaps they think I'm the only one. I'll be rejected. Perhaps everyone else has got all of this kind of thing sorted out and I'll just be laughed at because I'm slow. I read a post on a blog recently which somewhat underplayed the horror of the idea of hell. It read, "In a sense, it is shocking and horrifying. Think about people we know. That should give us cause to stop, to be gripped by compassion for them, to pray for them and to weep over them." But here's my question. If you believe in a God who would do this, why bother praying to him for your friends in the first place? If you're gripped by compassion for your friends, why pray to a God who is either unable or unwilling to see or value the good that you can see is in them? Why pray to a God who's happy to ultimately condemn them forever, even though you are desperately concerned about their eternal well-being? What kind of love is that? What kind of father would, having sought to build a relationship with his children, suddenly call time, switch, and then inflict agony and torture on them forever? We all recognise that if we knew of a parent, any parent, who we had evidence behaved in this way, we'd have a civic duty to report them to the police or social services immediately. But the heart of all this is simply that although life in our globalised, multi-faith, multicultural world highlights freshly some big questions for the church, in truth, they're only ones that have always been there. Here are some more of them. Is salvation, in the end, little more than a giant geographical lottery? What if the good residents of Kent had been raised in Kyrgyzstan, or those born in Boston had found themselves starting life in Baghdad? Surely many of us who are Western Christians are Christians only because we're Western. Or to put it another way, if the most devout Christians had been raised in an Islamic context, would they not very likely be devout Muslims? And would a God of love really create a world where only the Christian minority of the human race are treated with love? Would such a God really be content to consign the vast majority of the population of Earth to judgment and then onto some kind of hell? Or why is it that whenever any religious group claims that they understand the way of salvation, it's always good for them and their mates, but bad news for their enemies? If God's grace is real grace, amazing, undeserved, non-discriminatory, uncontainable, extraordinary grace, then why isn't it available to everyone, regardless of their geography, their religious beliefs, or their social background? In the end, Does all this mean that heaven is mainly for those lucky enough to live near a church, and the kind of church that helps and welcomes them, rather than one that hinders them and makes them feel unwelcome? What about the countless people who are turned away from Christ by the attitudes and behaviours of the church? And is there an age when you become morally accountable for your own eternal destiny? 3 or 5 or 10 or 18 or 21? Is there an age of innocence? And if so, when does it end? This would mean that if you're going to die from cancer, it's better to die before you reach that threshold than after it. So what do you really think about all of this? I'll be unpacking a little bit of my perspective over the next few weeks.